Are we saying that we should not consider that for inclusion in the New Testament canon? I think that would introduce some real interesting discussions, wouldn't it? So these would be some of the criteria that we think they may have used. Now, does that mean that these criteria are divinely inspired? No. Should there have been some others? I don't know. That's just kind of what appeared what they used. But that does leave open some questions. What about when it comes to relevant? And we know that some of Paul's letters are missing. Paul wrote 3 or 4 letters to the church at Corinth. We only have 2. In one of Paul's prison epistles, he mentions the letter that he wrote to the church of Laodicea. Do we have it? Well, we don't have any letter that's addressed to the church of Laodicea. There's some different theories. Some think that the Ephesians was a circular letter that was passed to many different churches, or it was a generic letter, and that on one of those, Paul wrote to the church at Ephesus, but he could have put to the church at Laodicea and sent the same letter to the Laodicea church. We don't know. But we could be missing a letter to the church at Laodicea. We are certainly missing 1, if not 2 letters to the church at Corinth. So, let's say some archaeologists are digging around and they find an ancient manuscript in Greek, and it's Paul's letter to the church at Laodicea. And we check it grammatically, linguistically, and we determine, hey, this is definitely Pauline. Well, it doesn't have widespread, long-standing usage, so it wouldn't meet that criteria. But what if it had something relevant in it for today's church? For example, what if Paul said in there, now I hear that some of you had received a copy of my letter that I wrote to the church at Rome, and you were experiencing a lot of anxiety and confusion over what I was saying about predestination and election, and I'd like to clarify that for you in this letter. Are we saying that wouldn't be, of course that would be relevant to the church today. Are we saying that we should not consider that for inclusion in the New Testament canon? I think that would introduce some real interesting discussions, wouldn't it? We'd have to be open to discussing it, of course. So I think that would be real interesting. So we do have some questions that would be like that. Do I think we're going to find such a letter? Probably not. But if we did, we'd have to have some discussions on that, wouldn't we?
Now, I always find it surprising that Christians try to persuade Muslims that the Torah and the Gospel has never been changed, whereas Christians know themselves that the Torah and the Gospel has been changed. But notice, after all the Christian attempts, the Bible is still being corrected and edited. Now, you might tell me that the one by Barbara Allen is the Greek text which you rely upon, because that's the text that stands behind the New International Version Bible. It is now in its 27th edition. You know that. It keeps changing.